Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf, SOTAH Mem Gimel. We are holding on Mem Beis, Amud Beis, on the very last line. So we're back to the Moshuach Nechama, this special Kohen who was anointed, appointed specifically for this purpose, to play the role of Moshuach Nechama. He would prepare the troops for battle. He tells them, look, Rabbi Isai, you have nothing to worry from me. The Goyim who are attacking you, because they're coming with power of Basar Vadam, human power. And you are fighting them with spiritual power, with the power of Hashem who accompanies you. Ki Hashem Elokeichem Ha-Hoylech. Because Hashem, who is actually going along with you, Ha-Hoylech Yimachem Lilochem Lochem, that was the lashon of the pasuk brought in the Mishnah yesterday. And the question is, instead of just saying Hashem is with you, he says Hashem is going along with you. And that brings us to this kasha. V'atem miatem. Cain, says the Gemara, v'kol kachlama. Why is he expressing it this way? Hashem was going along with you. The answer is because there was the Aron that had the luchais inside of it, which went along with the troops to battle. Mipnei shehashem v'kol kinuyav. The actual primary name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, with all these secondary names, all the other names, Kel, Lekecha, Kel, which are in the luchais, they are munachin ba'aron, placed in the aron, the ark which went along with them to Milchama. So Hashem is actually coming along with you, so to speak. V'cheinu omer, in fact, we find that the aron actually was taken with them out to war. This was by the Milchama which was waged against Midian. So it says, Vayishlach Oisam Moshe Elaf Lamate. He sent 1,000 per shevet. Latzava, right? He went and sent them out to war. Oisam Ve'ez Pinchas. So what does Oisam mean? Oisam Elu Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin which are Oisam. Why are they Oisam? It says the Maharsha, because they are equal in stature to the rest of Klal Yisrael. They're shokol like Klal Yisrael. That's why they're called Oisam. They sort of they're like a balance. They're shokol against Klal Yisrael. And then we have Pinchas. Pinchas was the Moshuach Nechama. He was the Moshuach Nechama who led them into battle. And when the pasuk says that they sent out the Klei HaKodesh and the Chatzotzer Shatrua, the Klei HaKodesh is our Aron that we're speaking about. Klei HaKodesh is the Aron, V'luchai Sheba, which contain the Luchais. Right? So the Aron and Luchai Sheba, that's called the Klei HaKodesh, Lashon Rabim, the Aron and the Luchais. V'chatzotzer Shatrua, these are the Shefares, Elo Shefares, which are used to blow during battle. There's another interesting pshat from the Ben Yehuda why Oisam refers to the Sanhedrin. He says, the known Gemara with Rabbi Akiva told us that Es Hashem Elokei Chatir, the word Es is coming to include Talmidei Chachamim. So he says that's the remez. Es Oisam. These are the Talmidei Chachamim. The reason they're called Es or Oisam is because they are Mekayim the whole Torah from Es, from Aleph to Taf. Bottom line, we see that the Aron did come along with them to battle. And that's what the Kohen Moshuach meant when he says, Rabbi Yisai, Hashem is going along with you. Now there's a big shayla. Tosfos brings two opinions regarding this Aron. Was it a separate Aron? Or was there really only one Aron? Whole discussion in Tosfos and the Rishonim. Okay, on the topic of Pinchas, who went to wage war with Midian, we have a Bryce. Tana, we learned at a Bryce. Lo lechinam, it wasn't, for naught. Holach Pinchas l'Milchama, that Pinchas went out to war against Midian, Elul Lipara, to pay back Din Avi Imai, because of what they did to his mother's father. Who was that? Yosef, who was sold by none other than the Midyanim. Shnaim Ava Midyanim Machru Oisel Mitzrayim. Remember, do you mean to say that Pinchas mi Yosef Asi, that Pinchas is a descendant of Yosef? V'oksiv, the pasuk says, Elazar ben Aaron, who was Pinchas' father, who did he marry? Lokach loy mibnois Putiel. He took from the daughters of Putiel, loy Elisha as a wife. Who's Putiel? My love, shall we not assume Putiel is Yisroi, the Asimi Yisroi, that he came from Yisroi. Shapitem, he's called Putiel because he was mefatim, he fattened agolam calves. He was a big idol worshipper. So bottom line, Pinchas comes from Yisroi, not from Yosef. Loi, says the Gemara, Putiel means Yosef. Me Yosef, he comes from Yosef. Shepit bet be Yitzroi. So Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron married a daughter of Yosef, descendant of Yosef. Shepit bet be Yitzroi, who just negated his Yetzer Hara. He overcame his Yetzer Hara, did not consider the Yetzer Hara when he had that Nisayon. So basically, Pinchas is a descendant of Yosef. Says the Gemara, we know that the Shvatim would embarrass him, would degrade him when he committed that heroic act and interfered with the Avera that was being committed by Zimri, who was a Nasi of Shevet, Reuven. And they told him, look, what are you doing? You have ulterior motives, you're not pure. Look where you come from. Reason Ben Puti zeh. Take a look at this. Ben Puti. Ben Shepitim Avi Imoy Agolam, one who comes from Yisrael, he was a Val Naved Zara, and you're going to go tell us what to do. Yahareg Nasi Yisrael, you're going to go kill a Nasi and claim to have pure motives? Your DNA is tainted. You come from Yisrael, you can't have pure motives. So apparently they were claiming that he comes from Yisrael. How could you say he comes from Yosef? Both are true. Elo, says the Gemara, Iyavodi Imem Yosef. One side was Yosef, one from the other side he was from Yisrael. If his mother's father comes from Yosef, then his mother's mother comes me Yisrael. Or the other way, Yosef, his mother's mother comes from Yosef, Yisrael, mother's father comes from Yisrael. So he had both sides to him. The economy, the pasuk indicates as such. Right? They married from Bnei Putiel. Instead of saying Putiel, it says Putiel, double plural, Trei Mashma. It indicates both things. Shema Mino, and that's a raya that in fact he comes from Yosef, who was Mepat Bet Yisrael, and he comes from Yisrael, who was Mepate Magolim. Okay, says the Mishnah, V'dibru ha'shoitrim ela amleimar. So now we're at the second phase of instructing the troops at battle. We had the Kohen Meshuach Muchama, who gives them words of inspiration, encouragement. It's all about Hashem's Koyach, who's keeping you strong and will give you victory. And then the Shaitrim, the officers, begin providing their instructions in terms of who should join the battle and who will be exempt, who will get a deferment and will be sent back from the battle lines. They come and they tell them like this. We have three categories of people who are exempt from actively engaging in battle. We have the fellow who just built his new house, who hasn't really used it for a year, hasn't really inaugurated, hasn't really appreciated it yet. We have the fellow who just got married and the fellow who just planted his trees and hadn't really derived proper benefit from it, which is fascinating. First, you have to, what gives us victory? What empowers Klal Yisrael against their enemies? By solidifying our home front, strengthening our family unit from within, committing ourselves to our mission in this world, which is building a family, parnasa, a home. Three elements that comprise a person's mission in this world. In fact, remember, we had this back in the Beis Amud Aleph in Masechah SOTAH. 40 days before Yetziras Havlad, the Baskel calls out, which three things? Exactly these three things. Bas pleni lepleni, marriage. Bayis pleni lepleni, your home. And SOTAH, the business, parnasa. The three elements of a person's tafkid and destiny in this world. So that comes first. It's first priority. So they announce like this: Mia ish Asher bona bayis chodesh lechanachai. Who is it? Anybody out there built a house, a new house, and hasn't yet really, lived in there, hasn't really inaugurated his home. Yelech v'yashuv lebeisei. Get up and go back home. Okay, so that's the first group of people, home builders. Whether he built a real house or even just a beis hateven, a hay storage house, which is fit for living, but it's not really going to be inhabited, doesn't matter. That's also included in this exemption. Beis hateven, beis habakar, a barn, beis ha'etzim, a wood storage house. Beis ha'etzim is another type of storage where they put their staples, their food. Whether he actually built this structure, whether he purchased it, or inherited it, or he received it as a gift. So all these people, they leave the war theater, unengaged in active battle. Okay, next group of people are the following people. Anybody out there who planted a vineyard and was not mechalel the vineyard yet. So first come 3 years of Arla, where the fruit is forbidden, totally prohibited. And then comes the 4th year called Revai, not the Revai, which is similar to Maser Sheni. You take the fruit and eat it in Yerushalayim. Alternatively, you could take the fruit and be mechalel, transfer the Kedusha on money, which eventually is taken to Yerushalayim. So anybody out there planted his fruit trees, but has not yet enjoyed them, hasn't yet been mechalel the fruit, meaning hasn't yet really experienced the 4th year where he can actually enjoy the fruit, leave the war. Whether he planted an actual vineyard or even any fruit trees. Or 5 fruit trees, which Rashi says is like the minimum share of an orchard. Even 5 different types of fruit trees, they qualify. Whether he actually planted it personally, or he did something called havrach, where they take a branch from an existing fruit tree, they bend it into the ground. Mavrich is like a berach, like a knee, bend it down, and bring it up on the other side to develop a new tree. That also qualifies. Markiv, or he did harakava, which means grafting. He took a branch of one type of tree and put it into the other tree. Same min, but different, let's say different variation, a more successful fruit tree with a less successful. Bottom line is, he grafted something, created something new. That constitutes newness regarding this exemption. Whether he actually did it himself, or he purchased it, or he inherited it, or he got it as a gift, he qualifies. Thirdly, marriage related. Anybody out there who got engaged to a woman but did not go further. Whether he engaged a besula, or even a widow. Even if he's a potential yavam to this isha who is awaiting that yivam. So his brother passed away, no children, there's a isha awaiting his yivam, that also qualifies. Listen to this. He's in the middle of his war, and he got some bad news that his brother passed away, got killed. B'milchama. Right? So his wife is now a yavama, awaiting his yivam. He leaves the battle scene, and he's exempt from fighting the war, because this takes priority. Now, all these people, right? They go back. So this guy, even Shama Shemel Chayzer Ubalai, he returns back to the country, back home, but he doesn't actually go back home. He's not engaged in combat, but he is meant to serve in a supporting role. So all these individuals, these 3 groups of people, the Bayis people, the SOTAH people, the Isha people, when they hear the the words of the Kohen, stipulating the rules of battle, So they hear and they come back, they return from battle, but they still serve in a support role. They provide food and drink, and maintain the roads. So although they're not engaged in active battle, lest they die and not able to continue complete their mission, but they're still supporting the war effort to this extent. But the following people don't qualify. They don't return at all. They stay at battle. A person had built a structure called a beis shar, a guardhouse, not really meant for living, not really roi for living. Rashi says it's just like a walkthrough. Achsadra, some sort of terrace, a portico, or a pesach, a porch. Or hanatei arboilan and machal. He only planted 4 fruit trees instead of 5. Or 5 trees, but they're not fruit-bearing trees. Or when it comes to marriage-related exemption, we have a machzer krushasai. He remarried his divorcee. Almana l'kohen gadol, or all types of unsuitable matches. Almana to a kohen gadol, grusha b'chalutza l'kohen hedid, mamzeres and sinu l'Yisrael, bas Yisrael l'mamzel l'nasser. All these individuals do not qualify for exemption. Lo yahaya chayzer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, a chiddush. A person renovated his home, he knocked it down and rebuilt it on the same exact spot, same exact configuration, did not add anything. This doesn't really constitute a new home, does not qualify for exemption. Rabbi Lezer Omer, another example, in Sharon, a certain location in Eretz Yisrael, they would build with blocks which would slowly sink into the ground, that would require rebuilding every couple of years. That's not a permanent structure, and one who built that type of home does not qualify for an exemption, for a deferment. So far we have 2 groups of people. Ones who stay at battle, and ones who come and serve in a non-combat role. Now we have a 3rd group of people who never leave their homes to begin with. They don't even go out there to listen and then serve in non-combat roles. They just stay home, period. Bonabais, a fellow built a new home, and already lived in it, but it's still within the first year. He hasn't really experienced that first year. Stay home. Or nata kerem b'chilulei. He planted his kerem and he's already at the 4th year, but he's not finished his 4th year. He hasn't really enjoyed it for a full year. Hanoises arusasai, or a person who already married his arusa. Hakoneses yivimta. He already did yivam to the yivama, and it's still within the first year. Shana Rishayna. So Shana Rishayna applies to marriage, applies to vineyards, applies to homes. Shanama, we find in the pasuk that there's a 1-year exemption for all these individuals. Naki yeh lebeisa shana achas, and we learn lebeisa is a beisai. You get a year off for the new home. The word yeh, naki yeh lebeisa, includes the kerem, the new vineyard, ze karmai. V'simchas ishtay, and that's the new wife, zu ishtay. When the pasuk says asher lakach, ishta asher lakach, what's the extra for? Lahavi es yivimta. Even a yivama, which isn't really technically his personal wife, he's just taking over his brother's marriage, that also qualifies. He gets a year off. All these individuals are totally free, totally exempt, and they have to focus on what they're doing without any distraction. They're not even engaged in support combat role. They don't support, they don't provide the food and drink or maintain the roads. We learned in a brayz. So, if you look at the parsha there, we start with the kohen meshuach, right? The kohen gets up and says, Rabbi Yisai, no fear, Hashem is with you. And then we have V'dibra Sheitrim. They get up and say, well, you built a new home, this, that, go back home. Right? So V'dibra Sheitrim would indicate perhaps that it's their words. Yochel Dvarim Shel Atzman. Is it their own words? Or is it dictated by the Kohen Gadol? And they're just announcing it. The answer is the latter. It's coming from the Kohen Gadol. Who's dictating to them? How do I know? Because further down the pasuk it says, by V'yosfu, right? In the pasuk Ches, it says V'yosfu ha'shoitrim l'davar. They add more. That's the sort of conclusion of the pep talk. They say, Rabbi Yisai, anybody that has yorei v'rachalevav, he's afraid, he's faint-hearted, you don't belong here, go back home. So v'yosfa shoitrim indicates that these are their words. Haradvarim shel atzman amar. That discussion, that announcement is something which they're offering. It's their personal contribution to the announcement series, right? Ha'amani mekayim v'dibra shoitrim. So then back in the pasuk hey, well, we have v'dibra shoitrim. They get up and they speak about the bayis and the sad and the isha. Who's that coming from? That's not their personal words. Rather, b'divrei moshuach mochama hakasim medaber. It's the moshuach mochama who initiates that part of the discussion, dictates it to them, and they relay it to the crowd. Haketzat kohen medaber v'shoiter mashmiya. The kohen speaks, and the shoiter, the officer, makes it known to the crowd. So now we have three parts of this prep talk. Tanichad. Now we have one brisa. Kohen medaber v'shoiter mashmiya. Kohen speaks, and the shoiter announces. V'tanidach. Another brisa speaks about kohen medaber v'kohen mashmiya. It's all the kohen. It's his words. It's his announcement. No help. V'tanidach. A third brisa. Shoiter medaber v'shoiter mashmiya. Shoiter uses his own words and he announces it. How does this work? All three are true. There are three parts to this discussion. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. How does this work? The first portion, that's all kohen. Nigash, it says of nigash hakohen va'ad v'dibru, until the words v'dibra shoitrim. The first part, that's all the kohen. Kohen medaber v'kohen mashmiya. Kohen speaks and kohen announces, meaning no help there. It's all personal from the kohen. Rabbi side, the Eibush is with you. Next part, starting from pasuk hey till pasuk ches, the midsection. Me from v'dibru hashoitrim until ad v'yasfu hashoitrim. That's the midsection. That's dictated by the kohen. Who should stay, who should leave, right? Kohen medaber v'shoiter mashmiya, but he uses the shoiter's services, so to speak, to announce, to actually instruct those words. A third part is totally shoitrim. From pasuk ches onward, where they speak about the yorei v'rachalevav. That's all the shoiter. Shoiter medaber v'shoiter mashmiya. Shoiter announces his own words without the kohen's help. So we have three parts to the parsha, and like we said, ultimately we have three groups of people: the ones who stay out there, the ones that never left their home, and the ones that went out there but then revert to a non-combat role. Miya'ish asher bana bayis chadash. The first exemption goes to the fellow who built a new home. Tana Rabban asher bana bayis chadash. Asher bana ein le'ela asher bana. Perhaps only one who actually built a home. What about lokach? He purchased a new home. V'yarash, or he inherited it. V'diz lematana minayin. What if he got it as a gift? Is that included? Tamalayim, the pasuk says, instead of just saying mi asher bana bayis, why does it say mi ha'ish asher bana bayis? The word ish includes all these other alternate forms of acquisition. Continues the Gemara. So the pasuk says asher bana bayis, one who built a home. Ein le'ela bayis, perhaps only a real home qualifies. Menayin l'rabbi beis ha'teven, or beis ha'bakar, or beis ha'itzim, or beis ha'itzis. What about the other structures which are technically suitable for habitation but not intended for such? Are they included as well? Talmud Loimer, the pasuk says asher bana. They could have just said asher bayis bana. It says asher bana then bayis. Asher bana indicates inclusion. Mikol malkam, all these structures as well, provided they're theoretically ro'oi for dwelling, although he doesn't actually dwell there. What about including the other structures which aren't even suitable for dwelling? A beis shar, a guardhouse, achsadra, merpeses. Talmud Loimer, the pasuk says no. Asher bana bayis, and we learn ma bayis haro'i ladira. It needs to compare to a bayis which is theoretically ro'oi for dwelling. Af koil, likewise, all the other structures need to be haro'i ladira as opposed to the beis shar, which is just meant as a walkthrough. It's not even ro'oi for dwelling. So according to Tanakama, any structure, any building, which is either an actual home or ro'i for dira qualifies. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov disagrees. Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov Omer, a bayis means a house, exactly as such. Bayis k'mashmoi, only a home qualifies, nothing else. Now the pasuk says, a person who built a home, v'loi chanochoi, hasn't really inaugurated the home. Instead of just saying loi chanach, it says loi chanochoi. That's a miyut. It's an exception. V'loi chanochoi prat legazlon. Only if it's rightfully yours, as opposed to a stolen home, and that doesn't allow you any exemption. So you stay at war, join the battle. Says the Gemara Lema, perhaps the fact that we're obligating him to stay and join the other troops is the loik Rabbi Yesi Aglili. This doesn't really work with Rabbi Yesi, because remember, this fellow did not vary, he stole the home, and still he's qualified for battle. Di Rabbi Yesi Aglili, because going to that shita of Rabbi Yesi Aglili Ha'amar, doesn't he tell us that when the pasuk sends home the Yorei v'rach halevav, the ones who are fearful and faint-hearted, we're not speaking necessarily about faint-hearted people in the emotional sense, that too, but the pasuk is primarily speaking about those who are fearful because of their spiritual status, because of the averos that they did. So why does this Gazlan go and join battle? Answers the Gemara, he did tshuva. I feel even going to Rabbi Yesi Aglili, this can work. He's going to have a tshuva. He stole the home, but he did tshuva. He repaid the value of the home. So technically, he's no longer a Baal Chet. Asks the Gemara, if that's the case, then he purchased the home. It's rightfully his. Let it qualify and let him return from war because of it. Answer is, it all depends on how he acquired it. Since he acquired it as a gazlan, he stole it, it doesn't qualify, even though today he compensated its owner. So the first class of people are the boine bayis. Next, those who planted their vineyards or fruit trees. Asharnata, one who planted. Perhaps only if you actually planted. What about if you purchased, inherited, got it as a gift? Lokach, v'yorash, v'nitale matona minayin. Do they qualify? Yes. Tamalaymar, umiha ish, asharnata kerem. It should have said, umiha asharnata kerem. It says, is it miha ish? Including all these other forms of acquisition. Now it says asharnata kerem. Perhaps only a vineyard qualifies, a kerem. Ainli ala kerem. Minayin l'rabis chamisha ilani machal. What about 5 other fruit trees? Vafilu mishar minin. Even if they're not vines, do they qualify? Tamalaymar asher nata. It could have said asher kerem nata. Only a vineyard, it said asher nata kerem nata. Any type of planting, any type of fruit tree. Yochal shani marbe. What about 4 fruit trees? Or 5 trees, but they're not fruit-bearing trees. Do they qualify? The pasuk does make mention of a kerem to indicate it has to be a fruit-bearing entity, and it has to be a sizable plantation, such as a vineyard, which needs to be at least 5 vines, as we learn in Maseches Kilayim. So according to Tanakam, any fruit tree qualifies, and any form of acquisition, planting, purchase, etc. Once again, Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov disagrees. He says like this: Omer kerem kemashmoi, just like by the bayis. He said literally a bayis and nothing else. Here as well, a vineyard and nothing else. Now the pasuk says he planted v'loy chileloi. It could have said loy chilel. V'loy chileloi. That's an exception, prat, as opposed to the following situations: lemavrich. Mavrich, we said before, was bending a branch and bringing it down the other side to create this new tree. Lemarkiv, grafting. That doesn't qualify. That's not called nata. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? Our Mishnah indicates otherwise. Vanan, look at our Mishnah. Whether by way of actual planting, or mavrich, or markiv, they all qualify. So the Mishnah says it counts. And the Brisa says it doesn't. Amar Rab Zera, Amar Rab Chis. The answer is like this. It depends how he did this harkava. Kan bar kavas iser, kan bar kavas eter. If he did it in a permissible way, so let's say he grafted, a branch of a similar min. Let's say he has 2 fig trees. And he takes a branch from one fig tree which is, let's say, more successful, more fruitful than this one. He attaches it to this one, or vice versa. There's all kinds of reasons why they would graft trees together, right? So if it's not a mix between 2 types, it's heter, harkavas heter, that qualifies. And that justifies his return from battle. But if it's harkavas iser, he's mixing together 2 different types of fruit trees. That's kilayim. That doesn't qualify. And the Farshim point out, that's good for harkava. What about the other case of havracha, bending the branch? So Farshim present all kinds of scenarios why it would be aser. Maybe on Shemitah, etc. The bottom line is, if it was done properly, it qualifies. Otherwise, it doesn't. So when the Mishnah says that grafting justifies returning from battle, we're speaking harkavas heter. And we're speaking that it's not yet, 4 years behind us. It's not yet chilulai. And therefore, he hasn't really enjoyed the fruits of his labor, and he can come back and enjoy them. Now, what exactly happened here? What did he graft with what? How old was the original one? And what's going on? What exactly happened in this harkavas heter? He took a branch of a young fruit tree, still, under 4 years old, and attached it to a yalda, another young fruit tree. So the original fruit tree was also less than 4 years old. And what does Mishnah say? He can come back from battle. Why? Because he grafted, he created something new, and it's not yet 4 years old. What do you mean? Now, skip the new one. The original one also is less than 4 years old. For the original one, he can come back. Tepig, let the reason be the boy meta, he'll come back mishum the alda rishayim because of the original young tree. Forget about the new graft part. Ella yalda biskein. Oh, he grafted a young branch, a young sapling, connected to a veteran tree, past 4 years old. So the original one doesn't qualify for returning from battle. It's only because of the new graft that he's exempted. 1 second, says the Gemara. In this case, it wouldn't qualify. We wouldn't reckon with that new branch. V'amra bravo, yalda. You take a young branch, shez simcha, which was attached and connected biskena into an older tree, but tela, batla, yalda, biskena. This bittul takes place. We don't reckon with the graft portion. It's batal, ve'ein badin arla, skip arla. It's part of the old tree. 20 years old. So that's not called nata keren v'le chilulei. It's all old. So what's the case of the Mishnah? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah. Here's the case. L'olam yalda b'yalda. He took a young branch and attached it to a young sapling, both less than 4 years old. Question: come back because of the original one. Forget about the graft. Answer: okay, going to nota lahach kamaisa. What happened was that the original tree was planted not for the purpose of bearing fruit, lisyag, to shore up, a hole in the fence, as a boundary tree, or l'kuris, or to produce beams. It wasn't meant for fruit-bearing purposes, and therefore there is no halachos of erla attached to it. The snana and the tail is syag l'kuris. A person plants for these purposes. Patam and erla, is no erla applied. So the original tree was never asa, was able to be consumed right away. There's no halach of chilul and all that. So that wouldn't justify his return from battle. He already enjoyed that first tree, even though it's less than 4 years old. Why is he coming back? Because of the graft portion that he added to that tree, which is now less than 4 years old. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? What happened to bittul? If the original tree had no din arla, so then the graft portion which he attached to that tree should be bottled to that tree and should be mutter from day one. It shouldn't have an arla either. The point point of waiting for chilulais because it can't be eaten until the fourth. There's no halacha of arla at all. It's batal. Umayshna yalda b'yalda loy batla. Sorry. Umayshna yalda b'skena de batla. Why is this different than that case of the young attached to the old, which is batal? Umayshna yalda b'yalda loy batla. And here we say that the addition, the yalda which is now added to the other yalda, which never qualified for arla because it was a boundary tree, the new addition does qualify for arla. Why? It should be batal to the old one. If the main does not have dini arla, so does the addition. Answers the Gemara, there's a big difference, a very subtle differentiation. You see, Hassam, in the case of the Yalda attached to this Gena, let's say he changes his mind, some sort of change of plans. It's just an expression because it doesn't really work in practice, but it's just the way the Gemara is expressing it. There's no way for him to change the configuration, the destiny of the Zakena. Lav bas mihadari. It's never going to turn around and become Arla enabled. The old one is 20 years old, it's over. You can't change its destiny. Right? You can't rewrite the plan, rewrite the blueprints. But over here, but in the case of the Yalda attached to a Yalda which happened to be meant for a boundary, as a boundary tree, that designation could be changed at any time, which will, going forward, trigger and activate Dini Arla. So theoretically, the original tree has within it a potential for Arla. It's not against Arla, it's not an anti-Arla. It's sort of on the fence. Boundary tree on the fence. Meaning it can go either way. Up until now, it was serving as a boundary tree, was not meant for fruit, has no Arla. But Hassam, imim l'chalol, let's say he changes his mind. He has a change of heart. Going forward, I'm going to harvest the tree, I want it for fruit. Bas mihadari. It reverts, it changes. It turns into a regular fruit tree, which has the inner Arla. So theoretically speaking, the original has within it a potential for Arla, and therefore the addition, at least the addition, will not lose its Arla status by being connected to that tree. Very interesting, deep and subtle differentiation. So now this one that I attached, the addition Meikar Leperikaima, was initially meant for fruit, and therefore that designation does not get negated by the original tree. It doesn't lose its Arla designation, and therefore this fellow returns from battle on account of the additional, the graft, which is a Bas Arla. So again, the question was, by the Yalda attached to the Zakena, no Arla. Batal. And by the Yalda attached to a Yalda which was planted for non-fruit-bearing purposes, we say, well, the Yalda retains the addition, the graft retains its status of an Arla addition, Arla entity. What's the difference? And the difference is that the Zakena is no longer an Arla entity by definition. It's over. You can never change that status. So something added to it becomes batal and assumes the status of the original, as opposed to a boundary tree. It's not like it cannot have Arla. Circumstantially, right now it doesn't have Arla because it's not serving as a fruit tree purpose. Right? But the addition, the graft, can have its own identity. It's serving in a fruit-bearing capacity. And the fact that he had planted the original one as a boundary tree doesn't preempt the Arla option. Mida dahava olum alein. It's not like you have to plant it l'shem peris to get Arla. Even if it just grows on its own. Bisnan, olum alein. Let's say suddenly a fruit tree pops up in your backyard. Chayavim ba'arla, there's Arla there. So bottom line is the Gemara is showing you don't need a positive machshava. You don't have to have a positive designation. Okay, this is a fruit tree to get it to be Arla enabled. Even a generic tree, even stam has Arla. So what do we see from here? You don't have to actually plant it l'shem peris to get Arla. So even if the tree was planted for the time being as a boundary tree, and was not planted l'shem peris, so what? That ingredient is not required. That's not a precondition for Arla. So as long as it's serving in a non-fruit capacity, fine. But as soon as he cancels that designation, it can now acquire halachis Arla. And that's the teres to the Mishnah. So again, we had a Mishnah that Harakava does return this fellow from the Milchama? A brisa which says it doesn't. The answer is the brisa is talking about he did it be'isr. Right? And Pasuk says, chileloi can't be isr. We have an exception. Dafka derech heta, not derech isr. Just like by the bias, we had the same thing, right? Chanochoy, it can't be a gazlan. Here as well, it can't be be'isr. Mishnah is speaking about that it was done beheter. The question was, what's the case? And we found the case. It was a young branch attached to a sapling which was not Erla enabled. So the original does not justify returning from battle, but the new addition does. Asks the Gemara, I can tell you, a more simple case. Forget about boundary trees. A regular, a sapling, regular vine. Listen to this. We have a partnership. A vineyard owned by two partners. Now the vine is 2 years old. Reuven owned the vine, and Shimon went and added the graft, harkava. So now we have a partnership here. And each fellow returns because of his portion in the tree. That's all. But the question was, let him come back because of the original. Forget about the graft. He can come back from war because of the original. Well, the original doesn't belong to him, it belongs to his friend. The high adar the day, Reuven will come back because of his portion in the kerem, and the high adar the day, and Shimon will come back because of the addition, because of the graft. What's wrong with that pshat in the Mishnah? Amar Papa says, we can learn from here that it does not qualify. Kerem shashnei shutfin ein chayzrun olav me'archa milchama. If there is a partnership in a fruit tree, it does not qualify for returning from the milchama. Why? Says the Gemara, Umayshna mechamisha achan. What about the marriage-related return? Right? You have five brothers. Umeis echad men b'milchama. One passed away during battle, without children. His wife is now a shemera siyavam. All brothers return because each one is potentially a yavam. It's like a partnership. The kul and chayzun all come back. Why is a partnership in a vineyard different? Answers the Gemara, big difference. Hasam over there by the yavama. She's only going to marry one. So every one here is potentially the husband, the full-fledged husband. Kol chad v'chad, every fellow, karina be'ishta, we call her his wife, meaning he could potentially be married to her, and completely married, without any interference. So each one has a right to come back. Hacha, but in the case of the jointly owned vineyard, kol chad v'chad la karina be'karmai. This karam doesn't belong to Reuven totally, nor to Shimon. Every grape in this vineyard is owned by two people, so it doesn't qualify for returning from battle. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar v'mavrich ilan b'yarok. He gives another teretz to the kasha. We say Markiv returns from battle. The question was, he returns anyway because the original one is less than 4 years old. V'mavrich ilan b'yarok. What's happening is that he's attaching a part of an ilan, a branch of a tree, and grafting it with a vegetable plant. So if he comes back, it's only because of the addition, because of the graft, not because of the vegetable that doesn't have any erla, that doesn't qualify for being chayzer from the milchama. Now, are you allowed to mix a tree with a vegetable? Yes. V'aytanu, who following the upcoming opinion, the Sanya Mavrich Ilan B'Yerek, Rabban Shimon Gamliel Mater. He says it's okay in the name of whom? Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Gamdo Ish Kvar Akh. So according to the first shita, it's mutter. That's the case in the Mishnah. He was Markiv, he connected the Ilan to the Yerek, and on account of that graft, that addition, which is less than 4 years old, he returns from war. So again, we have the Mishnah that a Markiv and a Marich returns, but speaking that it was done derech heter, two options. Either he had a young tree, but it was meant for not for the sake of fruit production, so there's no erla applicable, but he grafted onto that. On account of that young graft, he can return from battle. Another pshat, he grafted the ilan to the yerek. When Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, Amar Rabbi Yechon, he quoted Rabbi Yechon like this. We started with the kasha. The Mishnah says, he returns, and the Brisa says Mavrich and Markiv doesn't return from battle. Hamani Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. I'll tell you a simple answer to your kasha. According to Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov, we need to learn the pasuk in a very literal sense. Bana bayis means a house. Not a kerem means a vineyard. Not a kerem. He needs to actually plant a fresh vineyard. No grafting. No shortcuts. And that's the brisa. Didn't Rabbi Lezer tell us over there regarding the definition of kerem? It means kemash shmoy, an actual vineyard, and no other fruit trees qualify. Achanami, here as well, when it says nata, means planting. Nata kemash shmoy, literally. In only actual planting works. Mavrich and markiv loy, none of these other grafting and shortcuts. Okay, let's just summarize this Gemara. Mavrich, markiv, does he return or not? Mishnah says yes, Brisa says no. We have two ways to explain. When the Mishnah says it works, it can either be he grafted to a tree which was not fruit-bearing, was mental, a siyagul occurs, which doesn't really qualify for Erla and Neteravai, just the graft portion does, and that's why he's coming back. Second teretz, he grafted to a vegetable, which as well doesn't have Erla, he'll only come back on account of the addition of the graft. The Brisa says it doesn't work. Why? Either, one shot, Harkavas Isur, or it's Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov speaking. Harkava, that doesn't qualify unless he was actually an Eteya. Okay, here we have another halacha in the name of the same under Omer. Kosher Rav Dimi, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Yalda pchusa mitefach, have a young fruit tree, which doesn't really develop properly. It's not going past the tefach in height. So it's always going to look like a fresh sapling, even though it's 20 years old. Chayeves ba'arla kol shnei seah midrabbanan, we treat it as an erla tree. The meschazi, why? Because of maras ayin, it appears kebas shata, like a young 1-year-old tree. So on account of its midget appearance, we treat it like erla. V'hani mila shtayim keneged shtayim v'achas eitzezana. That's only when you have a small group of trees. 5 trees in total. And the reason why the Gemara does describe it as 2 against 2 and 1 coming out, which by the way can be seen over here in the Rashi, in Mem Gimel Amud Aleph. And our Amud Aleph, on top here we have the configuration of a 2, opposite 2 with 1 sticking out. That's the configuration of a minimum configuration of a vineyard, which qualifies as a vineyard. And Rashi brings that the reason why the Gemara does make reference to this type of configuration, that's because there's a shita in brachos daf lamed hey that holds that Erla and Neteravai only applies to a vineyard. So the Gemara is making reference to that shita. Bottom line is, the point here is that a midget tree, a minute tree, midrabbanan, is treated as Erla throughout its entire existence. Only when it's in a small scale. You only have a couple of those trees, 5 trees. Aval kulei kerem, but if you have a full orchard, a full vineyard, this is an attraction. Everybody knows about it. It's publicized. Everybody knows about it. This fellow's vines are growing no more than 5 inches, or 3 inches, or whatever he's growing there. It's become a very known phenomenon. Everybody's coming to look at it. It's an attraction, something to see, and therefore it's pretty clear and apparent that they're no longer Erla. There's no concern about misconception. Kiyosar Rav Dimi, another halacha. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Meis toifes arba ames likrishma. A mace extends 4 ames around him with regards to krishma, which means that one is not meant to recite krishma or engage in other mitzvahs within 4 ames of a deceased person, because it puts him down, so to speak, and embarrasses him because he doesn't have the opportunity to do mitzvahs. The chesiv, as the pasuk says, lo yigel rosh, a person who mocks a poor man like a mace, who is unable to do mitzvahs, cherev v'seu, like he denies its owner, its maker. It's almost like saying that, it's his fault that he can't do the mitzvahs, but in reality it's Hashem that put him in that position. So, sensitivity mandates keeping away, making that 4 amma distance between yourself and the mace while doing mitzvahs. Amar B'yitzchak Amar B'yechna, Mishum Lezer ben Yaakov. Now we're going to have a couple of halachos, 4 in total, from Rabbi Yitzchak, and then Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Lezer ben Yaakov. Chergasa, you have a stepdaughter, Hagdela ben Achim. So she's a stepsister, being raised amongst her stepbrothers. Can she marry them? Technically, yes. But the Rabbanon we say Asura l'nosel achar, she may not marry a brother. The Meschazu ki achsayu, because it appears like their sister, and that's Marasign. V'loy, the Gemara disagrees. No concern. Kol Isla l'musa. Everybody knows it's not a real sister. No concern. V'Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Relazim Yaakov. Another halacha regarding appearances and misconceptions. Leket shikha upeya, she'ason goyren. So as we know, a poor man has a right to pick leket, shikha upeya, things which the farmer drops, forgets, who leaves off in the corner. And these things are not obligated in Trumas and Meiser, Rashi brings, because the whole point of the Levi taking his Meiser is because he doesn't have a portion of Eretz Yisrael, so we give him a chelik of al grain. But if it's something that's open to all, such as the matnes aniyim, which even a Levi can take, so he has no right to ask for a maser on top of that. So an ani collects truma leket, even a large, massive amount. These are not chayiv and truma and maser. But if he goes and he makes a pile, a goren, it looks like he harvested it, it's a real substantial amount. Hukbu maser, that triggers and activates a chiyav of maser on it. Why? Because it appears like perhaps this ani is not really much of an ani. He has a field out there, and look at his granary, look what's going on. So, to avoid any misunderstanding and misconception, we obligate him to do maser. Amar ula loy amar, and this is only a concern ala b'soda. If he has this pile out in the field, aval be'ir, but if he has it at home, kol isla l'musa, there's no concern because everybody sees him slowly, saving up. Every day he brings another couple of stalks. It's pretty evident that he's gathering it from the field. It's not his own personal field. Amar Yitzchak, Amar Yechanan, Mishum Relazim Yaakov. A kalayim related halach. Yalda, a young sapling, a fruit tree, hapchusa mitefach. So you have a young vine which is below a tefach in height. Eino mekadesh is azroim. Even if you have other vegetables or seeds growing nearby, which would technically constitute kilai hakerem, which makes them asr b'hana. No problem. It's not mekadesh. Doesn't make it asr. Why? So Rashi brings is an interesting shita in Maseches Menachos that the only thing that becomes affected by vines is kanbus veluf, certain types of significant plants. These aren't just little seeds or vegetables. Only those grown together with vines become asr, but anything else is not asr ben haTorah. Even planted next to vines, it's only with the rabbanon. And since it's a mini vine, it's less than a tefach, it doesn't look like much, and therefore it does not affect things growing nearby. And again, that only applies to a minimally sized vineyard. 5 vines in total. Let's say I have really a full-sized vineyard. It looks like something chashiv and real. Then we say magdish. It does create isser when something's planted next to it. That looks chashiv and significant, and therefore we don't differentiate, even though the vines are small and many, but it appears like a vineyard, and we give it all the halachas of a regular vineyard, including the halachas of kalai ha-kerem. Okay, so in today's daf, we learned as follows. There were 3 parts to the pre-war presentation. Number 1, Koyin v'daber v'koyin mashmiya, the words of the Mashiach Muhammad himself. No fear. Your enemy is coming with power of Basar Radam. They don't match up to your power of Hashem, especially the Shechin of the Aaron, accompanying you to war. As we find by Pinchas, who waged battle against Midian, to do din, lipara din avi imai, what they did to Yosef. So part number 1, no fear, Hashem is with you. Part number 2, Kain dictates to the Shaitrim, who present as follows. 3 categories of people will not engage in active combat. Those who built or acquired new homes and have not yet inaugurated those dwellings. Number 2, those who are involved in planting new trees and have not yet arrived at the 4th year where they can actually reap benefit. Thirdly, one who engaged a woman but has not yet married. These fellows don't engage in active battle, but they serve in a support role to the active troops. Thirdly, we have people who never leave their homes to begin with. Those that are within the first year, Shana Rishona, of either marriage, new homes, or are still within the fourth year of their fruit trees. Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov's shita is that things are very literal. Only an actual home qualifies, an actual vineyard, and planting of that vineyard. We had a discussion regarding Harkava and Havracha, when it works and when it doesn't, and several halachas at the end regarding Maris Hayin. Hatzlacha Rabatu, and may Hashem give us much siyata d'shmaya, a lichtigin and freilich and Chanukah.